Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Bring Your Big Energy podcast. So happy to have you here today. So today's guest is Yvonne Caputo. Yvonne, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So all the things, as we just talked about, all the senior kid things, but I'm hanging in there. So Yvonne is an author. Yvonne is also a storyteller and an advocate for courageous end of the life conversations. So what started as a simple phone call with her father became a journey that completely transformed their relationship. It's inspired multiple books. It's changed the way that she understands and shares about grief and healing and even the joy in death. So Yvonne's a very unique guest that we're so blessed to have here today. And she's going to share her story behind what that transformation looked like, with the intensity point being this end of the life experience that she was able to share her father with, and why the conversations that most people avoid may actually be the conversations that matter the most to us. So Yvonne, welcome to Bring Your Big Energy. Before we dive in, just take us back to what that experience looked like and bring us into that story.
Okay. There are multiple time frames, but in 2008, my father and I were on the phone. He lived on the other side of the state. And after we talked about doctor's appointments and dialysis treatments and medical records and things like that, he opened up and told me a World War II story. Quirky, funny, off the wall, of all things, making an emergency landing in Fried, Belgium, toward the end of the war. Had never spoken about the war. So oftentimes when Dad and I talked on the phone, we would come to this stopping point, where there wasn't much else that we would talk about because I'm not a sports fan. What made me do it, I don't know. But the next week, I said to Dad, if you're willing, Dad, start at the beginning. How did you get into the war? Story after story after story just came rolling off his tongue. And I told Dad I wanted to take notes. What the hell do you want to do that for? I said, this is good stuff. I think that this would be something that the family would love. So at some point, I knew I had a book, that Dad's stories were so unique and were so Dad. And when I searched online to find something quite like it, I couldn't find anything. So that was the beginning of the shift in my relationship with my father. As we did that, he began to trust me on some levels that I just never thought were possible. For example, he said that when he came home from the war, he started having nightmares. Same nightmare over and over again. And my mother would wake him up and she would say, Mike, what is it? And he would say, oh, it's nothing, go back to sleep. Well, it was more than nothing, because he literally dug channels in the mattress.
Wow.
And the dream was he was going down, his plane had been shot up, and he had no way to get out. And the channels were him trying to pull himself through to a place where he could abort. And I said to Dad, as a therapist, a psychotherapist, well, your nightmares were normal. Again, out of Dad's mouth. What the hell do you mean? And I explained what we now know about nightmares and post-traumatic stress disorder that they didn't know when Dad came out of the war.
That he had carried all these years, right? With
All
a lot
those
of
years.
feelings, I'm sure, associated to why he was having those dreams.
And I ended my conversation after a description about why he was having, with sarcasm, which was the language in our family. So sorry, pal, you're normal. And your nightmares were normal. You just didn't know that they were. So that kind of discussion with Dad just kept getting bigger and broader and bigger. And in the meantime, while I was working at a retirement community, I was on the ethics committee. And we had a case where someone in late stages of dementia had foot ulcers, and the doctor recommended foot baths and antibiotics. The daughter stepped in and said, no. She said, that's not going to improve my mother's quality of life. She has an advance directive. Please don't do that. The problem was that the advance directive was from another state, and that state recognized quality of life. The state of Pennsylvania didn't. So our attorney said, you need to take this to court and let the court decide. So here's this problem with there now being 2 surrogates, a court-appointed surrogate to say yes to the foot baths and the antibiotics. If they didn't work, then the daughter could step in and say no more treatment. I went to heck in a handbasket because I didn't know whether Dad had an advance directive. So I called him on the phone.
Are you an only child, or is there other siblings?
There's an older brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
So I talked to Dad and I said, do you have an advance directive? And he said, what's that? And I said, well, that's a legal document that you choose somebody to speak for you if you can't speak for yourself. For example, what if you're in a coma? Do you want to live? Do you want to die? Do you want people to treat you? Do you want people to leave you alone? What do you want? And I then said, if I can find the appropriate attorney in Meadville, I'll drive home if you're willing to go with me. And he said yes. So we sat in the attorney's office and he named me his healthcare agent. And then she went through the list of, I want this, I don't want this, I don't want that. So that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
That was another piece. Me feel more comfortable about the day when Dad would pass, because it was going to happen.
Right.
Then back at the retirement community, I became aware of a document called the 5 Wishes. And this was an advanced directive with heart. And it asked questions that I had no idea how Dad would respond to. So I get in the car, drive back across the state. Dad's in the hospital. I'm shaking like a leaf much of the drive because you never know how Dad was going to react to anything. What are we doing this for? I thought that's just the way it was. Luckily, when I got to the hospital room, it was the wonderful Dad, smiling, glad to see me. How was your drive? And then I pulled out this 5 Wishes document and I said, I've got another thing I want to go over with you. Are you okay with that? He picked up his legs, put him over the edge of the bed, patted the seat beside him. It was still warm. Pulled up the tray, that's the hospital feeding tray, and we went item by item by item. He didn't want to be saved if 75% quality of life was not assured. He didn't want to give his body to science. His exact words were, it's so old and rotten, who in the world would want it anyway? How did he want to be remembered? He wanted to be remembered for his work with the Red Cross. What do you want your children to know? I want my kids to know that I love them. I know I made mistakes, but I want them to know how much I love them. All of these wonderful, beautiful questions. What kind of a funeral do you want, Dad? He was Roman Catholic. And he said, I want all the bells and whistles. I want a high mass. I want my nephews and grandsons to be my pallbearers. I want your husband to sing. My husband, Kirk, has a glorious tenor voice. And he said, and you're going to sing too. So all of these little intricate things that were going to happen someday, Dad shared in that document. So fast forward 6 years, and he had been in the hospital. We had just been home to see him. We had just driven back across the state. He calls me on the phone and he's livid, angrier than I can remember my dad ever being. And why did you tell them that I could get out of the hospital? I'm not ready. I mean, he just went on and on and on. And I now knew if I listened, it would pass. Mm-hmm. And it did. And I said, Dad, I told the social worker you could go home when you were ready, but it doesn't sound like you're ready. And then he did 2 things that I'd never heard before. Yvonne, I'm sorry for yelling at you. Can you come home? I'm scared. And I said, I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the end of this story is that I was there for 2 hours. We had to call the EMTs. I got on the phone to the hospital and said, they're bringing him in. Get his do not resuscitate order to the ER. God bless the ER doctor, because he called the EMTs and said, you can stop working on it. I laid down beside him. I put my arm over his chest. I told him that I loved him. I told him he was going to be with Mom. And then I did what was the glue in our family, the Lord's Prayer. And he was gone. And the EMTs picked him up. They put him on the gurney. And my father's dying wish was feet first out of his own home. Mm. And this is exactly what happened. Feet first out of his own home. And they set the gurney down at the back of the ambulance. They were going to take Dad in to be pronounced. And the ambulance doors were open. The light is shining on my dad's face. The snow's coming down an inch an hour. And on my father's face was this soft, sweet smile. And I went, truthfully, yes! The EMTs looked at me like if I had a marble, they were all gone.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then I said to them, you just did what Dad wanted, feet
Yeah.
first out of his own home.
Yeah.
I experienced such a profound, sacred joy at that moment when I saw the smile on Dad's face that's never left me, ever.
Mhm.
Now, can I be a bubble of tears missing him? Sure. Would I like to cook him a pot roast dinner again? Absolutely. But equal to the sorrow of not having him is joy. And my reason for writing the second book was I would love others to experience that. It
Mhm.
can't always happen, but when it happened the way it happened with Dad, what greater love can a father give to his daughter than to trust that when the time comes, she'll take care of it?
Well, and I think what's so powerful about your story is he wasn't a supernaturally vulnerable person, right? And so before this season, when you asked that first question, like, tell me about the war, what do you think started to shift between the two of you through those conversations?
This was the other surprise, but it shouldn't have been. In my late 30s, my mother said to me, if you want to get to know your father, you're going to have to go to him. That's what I was doing when I said, tell me, how did you get into the war? And as I listened to his stories, he didn't say it, but I knew. I wanted to know who he was. I really wanted to know the man I called my father. And my listening was what started us on that journey and my asking questions. So he never would have had to have gone to war. My dad repaired the airplanes that young test pilots were busting up. Those were Dad's words. But Dad flew in a plane, and he decided when he flew in something that he repaired, I don't want to fix him anymore. I want to fly him.
Way more
So
fun.
yeah. So he petitioned to get out of this. He could have stayed at home to being in his first training was in Miami Beach. Okay. So he's at Miami Beach and their billet, I can't think of the word right now. They're in hotel rooms. They're not in tents. They're not in barracks. They're in hotel rooms, stripped down. But Miami was the war. Miami wasn't having anybody come for vacation. And I said, well, what hotel, Dad? He said, I don't remember. It was on Lincoln Avenue, and it was at an intersection of Lincoln and something else. So I started to Google hotels at that intersection, and I'd get a picture off the internet and send it to Dad via email. Nah, not it. Nah, not it. Third time, yes, that's it. The Plaza Hotel. He said that's where we were cadets in Miami. And I think looking back, that's when the shift happened, that he knew how far I would go to research something so that it would be right.
Yes,
And
there's the listening and the curiosity to go down the path to understand and to understand him probably. He probably, not that I can put an emotion on him, but he probably understood, felt like you were trying to understand him in that moment.
Mhm.
Wow. So now in the fast forward to the part where you're having this like beautiful moment at the end and you're like, yes, you said you experienced profound joy when your father passed because you knew his wishes were honored. Can you explain that feeling to the listeners? And can you explain how you got there?
It was the smile. It was beatific. It was soft. It just said everything that I would have wanted to know, that Dad had died the way he wanted to. He was where he wanted to be. It happened the way he wished it. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. Just this sacred joy that my following through on what he'd asked for was how that smile could happen.
Mm,
I can close my eyes and I see the smile.
yeah.
I can talk about him the way we're talking about now, and I feel that joy. It's hard to describe,
Yeah.
but it's joy to the nth degree.
That's so good. So then how does that, so you have that experience and you now want other people to feel that. How did that experience shape your purpose, as we might want to call it, to the work that you do today, which is really around these end of life conversations?
I was driven. I am driven. All of my careers as a teacher, as a psychotherapist, as the director of human resources, all of my careers have been centered around helping people as a therapist and even as a teacher and even as an HR worker, of having someone come into my office or someone talk to me and leave it lighter when they entered, because somebody was there to sit and listen. And so that kind of experience makes me want to share
Mhm.
the same experience that I had with Dad.
Well, I think death's a hard one, right? Death comes with so much and it comes with so many feelings of what that life has looked like up until then. But it comes to like, it can be morbid. It's overwhelming. So, what do you say to someone who keeps putting those conversations off? As someone who's been on the other side and knows what a gift and how important they are, what do you say about people who don't want to go there?
I honor where people are because it is hard. But the feedback that I've gotten from the book, there are 3 really kind of poignant stories. I had beta readers and they read the book to give me feedback. And once they did, I talked to them, and one of them, she said, I was one of those people. My parents have tried to have those discussions with me. And I've said, no way. I don't want to go there. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it because it's hard.
It is.
And what we do with hard stuff is we push it away and not pay attention to it. The problem with that is we're all going to die.
Mhm,
There's no getting out of that one
mhm,
that I know of.
mhm.
And so what she did was then she set up meetings with her parents, and that's what they did together. They talked about what they wanted in the end. They talked about um, what it all meant. They talked about what they wanted to leave behind. The second one was an older gentleman, and he said, I didn't know you had to do that stuff. I didn't know that that was available. He had a will. He had those kinds of things taken care of, but he had no idea that he needed a special document to say what would happen. Well, he did the 5 wishes, and he told his daughters on his 85th birthday that what he wanted to do was he wanted to discuss the 5 wishes with them. He wanted to let them know what he wanted. So that's what they did. So when it got time to burial or cremation, he said, I want to be cremated. And the daughter said, well, what do you want us to do with your ashes? He said, I don't care. Throw them over the bridge. Doesn't mean anything. I don't know. And one of them popped up and said, well, that's illegal, Dad. We can't do that. And then the other one said, wouldn't you like your ashes spread out on the farm where you grew up? He said, that's too much trouble. And they said, what if we'd like to do that? He said, really? They said, yes. So he went in and changed the 5 wishes and stipulate that he wanted his ashes spread on the prairie. The third one of the writers in my writers group had been acutely ill for a long time and learned through my publisher that this writer had said, hospice. I'm ready for hospice. No more surgeries. No more nothing. I'm done. And her husband wanted her to have an opportunity to talk to the other women in her group. So he set up 15-minute slots over Zoom. And she was in the hospital. And our conversation lasted 8 minutes. That's all she could do. But she kept saying, thank you for the 5 wishes. Thank you for introducing me to that document. Thank you for giving me something that my family could sit down and we could talk about it. They're okay with my wishes. We're all settled. I'm so ready to go. What's better than that?
I was going to say, what a wonderful way to leave this world. And then what a wonderful feeling for that family to feel. Again, back to your joy on that day of being like, okay, I really did something that was really meaningful in the end and make sure to steward them to the right place. What do you say to families that like they're broken families or they're challenged families or there's things they just don't talk about or they have unresolved tension or trauma? How do you help them to move towards conversations that they've been avoiding in this subject?
Who in your family are you closest to?
Find that
Who do you trust to honor your wishes? Is this somebody that you can talk to or talk about? If you're willing to do that, then that's the person you choose. If this is something that you want to do and there isn't anybody because you're family is so fractured. You can find somebody. It could be an attorney. It could be somebody who, when the time comes, they will step in because they have a document that says you've appointed them as your healthcare agent.
I think that's good, though, 'cause that's helpful because what it says to me is people expect if they're not closest with the people they should be closest to or want to be closest with their family, there's someone in their family that they have a good enough relationship that they can help to work through that with. And so I think that is I do appreciate that because it helps people to kind of expand beyond the obvious if that feels like that's a roadblock in their way of being able to have someone that can help them to get to the place they need to be in the end.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
It
Do you
doesn't have
feel
to be
like
a family member.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Do you feel like yeah, or it doesn't have to be a family member, right? You're right. You can
Mhm.
have someone hired to do it or elected to do it. Do you feel like this has changed the way that you spend your living life?
Dramatically.
How so?
I'm what I call deliciously semi-retired. The semi-retirement is the 2 books. I sort of thought when I retired that I'd be the woman in the neighborhood that was baking cookies and having the kids over and that kind of thing. Not at all. It
Mm,
just turned my life in a direction that I'm willing to take on. I can't say that it's always easy because if I want to spread the word, I have to think about dying myself. So dying is something that's always present for me. I can't run away from it. I can't shove it into a corner. I have to be able to talk about it knowing full well that my day is coming.
mhm.
That's the hard part. I love my kids. I love my husband. Having worked in a retirement community, I don't want them to go through that chaos of not knowing. I don't want them to say, I should have said, I could have said. I have in my 5 wishes, I said, if I'm no longer able to speak, if there's something that I have done to hurt you, tell me. There
Mhm.
will be a place in me that will hear it.
Right.
And there will be a place in me that would like to say, but no, I'm saying I'm sorry.
Mm,
And if there's something that you have done that you feel like needs to be taken care of, let me know. And know that, even though I can't speak to you, there's something in me that will be able to let you know it's okay. Don't take it with you.
I love that. Don't take it with you. That's so, so real. So are the 5 wishes, are they written out exactly like answer this question, or is it sort of just like a choose your adventure? Like, here's the 5 things that I want to be sure are true.
I need to have copies of it when I do these kinds of things. It's a pamphlet.
Okay.
You get it at fivewishes.org.
Okay.
Simple, simple.
Yes.
It's $5.
Yes.
It's a blue paper, 8.5 by 11. And you open it up, and the first thing you talk about is who do you want to be your healthcare agent? Then the second thing is like a standard advance directive. How comfortable do you want to be? You know, all of those medical questions. This is where Dad was very, very concrete. If I don't have 75% of quality of life, then please let me go. The third section is how do you want to be remembered? The fourth section is, and I may not be totally correct on this, what kind of a funeral that you want. Some
Mhm.
of those intimate questions that I was talking about earlier. You can do it in the document. You can write your answers in, or they have a way to do it online. And they will keep that record for a year and a half. I'm older now, so one of the things that's on my to-do list is to go back and do it again to
Mhm.
see if, what I said originally still goes.
Mhm.
And then to make sure that my kids all have a copy of the document.
So, Yvonne, I know there's several books in addition to the first, and so what does that look like? What are you up to now? What do the books look like? Walk us through what the journey is you're on now.
A combination of promoting the 2 books and being retired.
Perfect.
Yeah, spending time doing podcasts. There's a weekend coming up in Reading, Pennsylvania. It's the World War II weekend, and I
Uh-huh.
will be there hawking books for 3 days.
Awesome.
But beyond that, sitting and watching TV with my husband, because we can.
Mhm.
Taking naps during the day, because we can. It's a
Yeah.
combination of enjoying retirement but balancing it in marketing the two books because of what the theme of the two books are.
Yeah. And what are the names of the books? Remind me and the listeners.
Okay, the first one is Flying with Dad,
Okay.
a daughter, a father, and the hidden gifts in his stories from World War II. The second one is Dying with Dad, Tough Talks for Easier Endings.
Is there anything you want to leave us with that you want to share with the listeners as kind of a parting gift? If they only left with one thing from today, what would that thing be?
Go on the Five Wishes website. Look and see what it says. Buy a copy. It's $5. You know, they have other materials to go along, like how to start these conversations. There's a lot of material there. That, for me, is a place to start. And then find out if the Five Wishes is legal in your state. It's legal in the state of Pennsylvania. All we needed to do was Dad was in the hospital. I went out and grabbed two people who witnessed his signature. It didn't have to be notarized. Sit with the idea. Know that it is the elephant in the room. But think about how you could make it easier for yourself. All right, I do have a parting word. So we're in Father Gramada's office. We're going to have this high mass. And my brother said to Father Gramada, I don't know how this works. And I said, okay, this is what Dad wants. He wants this, he wants this, he wants this, he wants this, he wants this. Done. No arguments.
Mm-hmm.
No, my mother died in a hospital alone. I have no idea what she wanted. That death was so difficult for me because I didn't know. We talked about it. Mom was in the beginning stages of dementia, and she knew it. And she sat up one day when I was visiting, and she said, Yvonne, I want to go. And I said, tell me. And then she listed all of the things she wasn't doing and how unhappy she was. And she said, I want to go. And given Mom's faith, I said, well, talk to God. Tell him you're ready. Between the two of you, you decide when it's time. Now, it was wonderful that we had that conversation. I'm blessed with it. But did she want to die alone in the hospital? Was there something else she might have wanted? We didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't know.
Yeah, being curious and listening and asking and preparedness it's really a gift again for both parties. I see that.
Yeah, here's another little anecdote. One of my very best friends called me and she got the Five Wishes and she was going through it. And she said, you know, I don't know about this one. I'm not sure what my family would want. And I said, this is for you. It's what you want. What do you want in that circumstance? Sometime later, when she finally finished it, she said she sat down and talked to her daughter, who's an only child. She said it was the most intimate, loving discussion that they had ever had. So for your listeners, know that facing the trepidation, facing the fear, talking about the subject that nobody wants to talk about, there's the possibility of some real beautiful moments together before the event happens.
Yvonne, thank you so much. Thank you for inspiring us and thank you for helping us to think differently. And thank you for sharing your father's stories and how it's affected your life and giving us some things to think about. Thank you for sharing the Five Wishes. I didn't even know that was a thing. And so you're just such a gift. And we're very, very appreciative of you joining us on the show today. Thank you.
And thank you for having me.
Such a blessing. Take care.
Thank you.